The legend of Sleepy Hollow and Washington Irving, the fact, the fiction, and all the places in between. Join me today on Walk with History from Sleepy Hollow, New York. I'm walking in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. We're heading to see the grave of Washington Irving. So, if we talk a little bit about the legend of Sleepy Hollow and why it's such a popular American folklore ghost story, the history behind it. Washington Irving did such an amazing job of tying history, actual facts, actual locations with the folklore and mystique of a ghost story. He was majorly influenced by other authors of the time because the Headless Horseman is not a new concept. It was around in other stories. This is a sign as you walk up, Legends and Lore, Headless Horseman tethers his horse nightly among the graves in this churchyard, according to the legend of Sleepy Hollow. So here's the tethers where the kids are. And in the story, he tethers his horse nightly here because that's where the church is. And we're gonna go show the church where Washington Irving, where he has to stop to, he can't come any further than that. So who is the Headless Horseman? And we've talked about this before in other videos. He's a Hessian soldier from the Battle of White Plains during the Revolutionary War. He's fighting on the side of the British against the revolutionaries. He's a paid-for soldier from Germany. And during the Battle of White Plains, 1776, and this is an actual fact, is his head is taken off with a cannon. Now, Washington Irving had heard this story. So many people had heard this story. It's written in journals. I don't know if everyone stopped fighting in that moment and was like, oh my gosh, that dude's head just got taken off. So that's where he comes from. And what's interesting is in the story Brom Bones,
appointed leader, one Brom Bones, was a burly, roistering blade, always ready for a fight or a frolic. And though Brom was much given to madcap pranks and practical jokes, still there was no malice in his mischief. Indeed, with his waggish humor and prodigious strength, Brom Bones was quite the hero of all the country round.
Brom Van Brunt, who they call Brom Bones, is retelling the story at the Halloween party because he has come to realize that Ichabod Crane is a scaredy cat.
For when the hour grew late, Van Tassel always called upon his guests to tell him ghostly tales of Halloween. And Brom knew there was no more firm and potent believer in spooks and goblins than Ichabod Crane.
Right? And Ichabod Crane reads all these stories about ghosts and witches, and when he gets scared, he whistles. So we're on Lincoln Avenue, coming up on Crane Way, heading up. You have to walk to this. You cannot drive. So heading up to Washington Irving. So Brom Bones has come to the realization Ichabod Crane's a scaredy cat. And so because he is a Revolutionary War veteran, he knows the story. So he tells the story at the party.
Just gather round and I'll elucidate on what goes on outside when it gets late. Long about midnight, the ghosts and banshees, they get together for their nightly jamboree. There's things with horns and saucer eyes, some with fangs about this.
Wanting Ichabod to hear it. And he talks about the bridge. And again, using a part of American history, the tree where the Headless Horseman is to start, where Ichabod Crane starts, is the tree where the traitor who helped Benedict Arnold was hung when he was caught by the revolutionaries. He's the one who has the plans in his boot for West Point. So here we are at Washington Irving's grave, right here. Here's the gate. His grave is right over there with the flags on it. See, that's Washington Irving right there. So it says the Irving family plot. I don't think he was originally buried here. I think his wife moved him here. But here we are in the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, the grave of Washington Irving, who wrote the legend of Sleepy Hollow. How cool is that? I'm at 18 North Broadway at the Landmark Condominium here in Tarrytown, and this is where Katrina Van Tussel's homestead was, where their farm was, or their land was. This is about a quarter mile from the Patriot Park where Andre was captured. And so this is the route that Ichabod Crane would have taken back to Sleepy Hollow. So again, Tarrytown is what this was called. That hollow was still Tarrytown, just a quiet space, where this was more robust Tarrytown. If you want to know what this is, it's on Broadway in Hamilton. So basically the whole route of Ichabod Crane is Broadway, the whole route from here all the way down to where the Old Dutch Church is. So this is where the party happened that night. This is where Brom Bones tells him the ghost story of the Headless Horseman.
Oh, I'm telling you, brother, it's a frightful sight to see what goes on Halloween night. Oh, when spooks have a midnight jamboree, they break it up with fiendish glee. Ghosts are bad, but the one that's good.
So this was a Dutch area, and that's why Washington Irving's characters are Dutch. Katrina Van Tassel, Brom Van Brunt. He borrows the horse from a Von Ripper, the horse Gunpowder, who's not a very good horse. He borrows it from a Von. So it's all these Dutch people in this area. It's settled by Dutch. But it's a real place, it's a real town. He uses real locations. The church we'll see here, the Old Dutch Church, the bridge. Now there's no evidence that the bridge was ever a covered bridge. And actually in this area, there weren't many covered bridges. Covered bridges are more upstate. But again, I'm Jen, the Walk with History YouTube channel, the Talk with History podcast. We go to historic places and tell you all about them. We have maps so you can follow us and go to the same locations we go to. Washington Irving is an author, short story writer. Most people know him from The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Rip Van Winkle. He's the youngest of 11, born in 1783. He dies in 1859. He likes to write using these pseudonyms. Knickerbocker is the one who basically does The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. From 1836 to 1842, Irving lives here in Tarrytown. This is where he dies in his sleep at Sunnyside Manor House. His protagonist, Ichabod Crane, who we've talked about before because we've talked about his son. Ichabod Crane was a real person. His son, Charles Crane, was the physician that attended Abraham Lincoln. Ichabod Crane and Washington Irving were stationed at the same place at the same time. There's no evidence that they knew each other, but there is evidence that they were there at the same time, and Irving liked to collect names. So here we are, Sleepy Hollow Church. So this is the Old Dutch Church. This is the church that, here we go, the Old Dutch Church of Sleepy Hollow, 1697. This is the church that Ichabod Crane's trying to make it to. This is where if he crosses that bridge, and we'll take you to that bridge, this is the holy area that the Headless Horseman can't cross into. It says the Old Dutch Church of Sleepy Hollow, built 1697 by Frederick Philips I, Lord of the Manor, and used since except in the Revolution. Pretty cool, huh? Here's the sign behind me. Old Dutch Church, Sleepy Hollow, 1685. This is the south gate. This is the gate you're going to want to come in if you want to see Washington Irving's grave. And it's right beside the church. So right beside the church, south gate, and then this is how you park here, and then you're going to walk up, and it's a good steep walk up to see one. So I'm walking over to Patriot Park in Tarrytown. We're basically on the Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow border, and this is where John Andre, the British spy, was apprehended. The other side is Sleepy Hollow, and then here's where Andre was captured. Major John Andre He was disguised. He had the plans for West Point in his boots. Is a statue commemorating it. On this spot, Major John Andre was captured by John Pauling, David Williams, Isaac Van Wart. But this commemorates the location. So this is where Ichabod Crane first sees the Headless Horseman, meets the Headless Horseman. This is the area right here. So there's a bridge right beside the church, and this is the bridge. He's trying to make it across this bridge. It says Washington Irving. This was erected in the memory of Washington Irving, Sleepy Hollow Bridge, 1783 to 1859. So this is the bridge. He's trying to make it up to that church, right? If he gets to the church, the Headless Horseman can't come any farther. And so this is the bridge right here. And so it's from the tree, so we'll go to the tree to this area that he's chased by the Headless Horseman. It's basically the last 2 pages of the whole story. And the horseman in the story throws his head at Ichabod Crane. Like, he's holding his head, he throws his head at Ichabod Crane, and it hits Ichabod Crane in the head and it knocks him off his horse. The next morning when people come out, they find the smashed pumpkin and his hat, and no sign of Ichabod is ever found again. So people assume that he was spirited away. Now there's like little bylines in the story that Ichabod Crane, people heard from him years later, he became a judge, interesting kind of things. But the jack-o'-lantern is really not even mentioned in the story at all. But right across from the bridge here, you see me cross the street, is one of the Headless Horseman statues. So we're gonna go see that.
Next morning, Ichabod's hat was found. And close beside it, a shattered pumpkin. But there was no trace of the schoolmaster.
So see the Headless Horseman who has the jack-o'-lantern in his hand, which is not from the story, because in the story he throws his head. But it's probably a lot nicer that he's throwing the jack-o'-lantern. And then there's Ichabod Crane on Gunpowder, the slow horse. Ichabod Crane like falls off the horse. It's almost like funny, this story. Ichabod falls, the saddle slips off, he falls off. He holds onto the neck of the horse for like dear life as he's trying to cross the bridge to make it to the church. But this is the statue here in town depicting the Headless Horseman. I'm at Phillipsburg Manor, which is not too far away from the old Dutch church. And here is another statue. Again, you have Ichabod Crane, see, without the saddle, holding onto the neck of the horse. And see the church, trying to make it to the church, the tree, the hanging tree, Andre's hanging tree, the trader who worked with Benedict Arnold. And down here, where the other statue is, across that bridge to the old Dutch church. This is like the whole area where the Headless Horseman took place. Scott always goes into why I love ghost stories. And I love ghost stories because of the history they have. All these, and Washington Irving lived here, so he knew all of this. I love how he's pulling all of this stuff. Thank you, and if you're ever around the area, if you ever by White Plains, Tarrytown, check out The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's here waiting for you. On to my next Walk with History.
When the spooks have a midnight jamboree, they break it up with fiendish glee. Ghosts are bad, but the one that's cursed is the Headless Horseman. He's the worst. That's why he's a